Learn how to get anybody to do anything. One magical trick to convince people. Sell anything effortlessly. If you can trust the sales trainers on the internet, and you can't, subconscious persuasion is truly a magical power. A few very confident people, well, let's be honest, mostly men, seem to possess it and are willing to teach it to you in their book/online course/training seminar. The only thing they ask in return is large sums of cash. Why do I care? I used to be one of those guys, and in this video I want to look at the reasoning that changed my mind. We'll get into some of the ethical problems with using subconscious persuasion, how manipulation actually works and its limitations, and why I believe the world will be better off without it. I'm Jasper Geluk, an ex-NLP trainer, and this is Personal Development Explained. Suppose you are at work, having a conversation with your boss. Let's say you're asking for a pay raise and it's not going well. Many of these so-called experts claim that by buying their expensive training, you too will be endowed with the mystical power to make people do your bidding as easily as pushing a secret button. But would you actually want to live in a world that functions this way? Let's try it out. Your boss will now have a button that if you push it will instantly convince her of anything you want. What would you do? We can all imagine pushing that button and on the spot getting our pay raise. You would be unstoppable. In this world, everybody, including yourself, has such a button. You would soon get frustrated because it would be the fastest and most frequent button pushers that get ahead, not the people who actually come up with the best rational solutions based on logic. People can just push a button, even your button, to get more money, get their way even when they're wrong, or get away with a crime. Civilization would likely collapse since justice, innovation, and technology are built on rational thought. So back to the conversation with your boss. Would you still want to push that button? Or would you rather talk and mutually agree to not push each other's buttons? Also, when thinking long term, you may be able to use sneaky persuasion techniques to convince her in this moment. But what will happen if she eventually discovers she was tricked into paying you more than the value of your work? In the real world, it thankfully isn't that easy to get convinced against your will. This is mainly due to us not being as impulse-driven as other animals. It is no coincidence that you don't see humans barking at squirrels, giving paws, and smelling each other's rear ends everywhere. This lack of overt animalistic behavior on our part is indeed because we are not dogs. I don't care how impressed you are with a problem-solving raven, dancing dolphin, or golf cart driving orangutan. They have nothing on me and the complexity that goes into my new and improved tomato soup recipe. Olive oil. Just a touch. Tomato soup. The big difference comes from our in comparison massively oversized prefrontal cortex. It helps us with reasoning logically, long-term planning, and carefully weighing the best decision. It does not mean we are untrickable, as illusionists are keen on showing us. We are still quite susceptible to trickery, just to a lesser extent than most pets. So let's look at those persuasion tricks that work on us humans. To be clear, we're talking in this video about subconscious persuasion. This is the form of persuasion that is also often classified as manipulation. Giving a convincing argument based on logic and reason is not the same. The difference lies in how these subconscious tricks achieve their goal. They try to exploit our hardwired animalistic tendencies. By doing so, one hopes to bypass the critical mind that might otherwise use its pesky reasoning capabilities to come to a different conclusion. These tricks are often reminiscent of what one would learn at dog training. The main difference being that it targets your co-workers' animalistic weaknesses instead of your labradoodles. Some of these hardwired weaknesses are very well described in the all-time classic book Influence by Robert Cialdini. Let's just look at one of them as an example, and this technique has very likely been used on you before. It is called microagreements, and it revolves around the principle of commitment and consistency. The basic idea is that it is easier to get people to agree in small steps than one big step at once. This weakness is often exploited in sales situations, where you'll be asked to make all sorts of small choices before you make the big, "do I even want to buy this?" choice. Let's say you go to a store to see if you want to upgrade your phone. A salesperson may first ask you simply very helpful questions about what you want. Like, what do you use your phone for? What are some of the troubles you have with your phone now? Slowly the questions might shift to, how much storage would you want on a phone? Which color of these new models do you like best? A well-trained salesperson might take you all the way, until you find yourself at the cash register answering whether you want to pay by card or cash, and possibly what color you want your second cell phone to be. There are many ways to defend yourself against these forms of manipulation. We'll look at those more in other videos on this channel, but the main thing is understanding the tricks and seeing through them for what they are. It is also worth mentioning that not all techniques that are taught in popular persuasion courses and books are actually effective. As critical thinking is made out to be the enemy, most of these guru trainer types are doing a great job of cutting off their own critical thinking also. Therefore, they sometimes teach the weirdest things. On top of that, the people that are easiest to fool by your technique will become just as starry-eyed when the next snake oil salesman does their song and dance. This is why there's also a strong amount of easy come, easy go if you convince people without logic and reason. So although there are certainly ways to trick humans against their own self-interest, it is not as easy as just pushing a secret button. Combined with the ethical qualms around manipulation, I recommend thinking twice before buying an expensive persuasion course. People often wrongly think of persuasion as one person against the other. In reality, there's hardly ever a true zero-sum game, where one person has to lose in order to make the other win. Usually there's an increase in value for both parties when the best solution is found. Even a purchase is not a zero sum. The other person may get all of the money, but you get the product in return. As long as the product is worth more to you than the money you lost, new value has been created for both parties involved. In real life, we are usually trying to find those win-win solutions that will benefit everybody. More so because most people that want to learn persuasion don't even want to rip people off. Over the past 10 years, I've given and taken many persuasion courses. People just want to get better at convincing their boss, customers, co-workers, and in some cases their spouse or children. This is understandable and not inherently bad. When you find yourself wanting to persuade, you, like them, probably truly believe that your idea is a win-win and the best solution for all parties involved. The only thing that stands in your way is them not agreeing with you. However, as you will probably admit, possibly begrudgingly, you don't know everything. In some cases, the other person might actually be right. Considering that you may be wrong, is it better in this situation to use subconscious persuasion to get the other person to agree with you nonetheless? Or should you have a rational conversation, carefully weighing the facts and being mindful to exclude any biases? If you were right in the first place, a logical conclusion would only demonstrate this. And if you were wrong, wouldn't you much prefer to know about it than having the other person also convinced of your mistake? And to those that insist that persuading someone against their best interest will benefit you, does it really? How often would you go back to a store where the salesperson is aggressively selling to you and you end up with more than you want? Would you leave them a good review and recommend friends to go there also? If you feel one of your employees is not being honest and keeps bending reality to make himself look good, would you promote him or rather find a way to fire him? In a free economy, it's much better to build a reputation of being truthful and respectful rather than trying to scam your way into a quick buck. And now for something completely different. How do you get a pay raise with logic and reason? The answer comes from Chris Voss, the author of this book, Never Split the Difference. Chris is an ex-FBI hostage negotiator with a mountain of impressive experience under his belt. He now teaches negotiation at universities and businesses. One of his core ways of handling a salary negotiation is just flat out asking what you can do to become more valuable to the company. This shows your boss you understand that a salary is a fair trade of value for value. If you create more value for her, it's logical and reasonable to get a higher salary. No sneaky persuasion required. If you want to learn more about negotiation, I highly recommend reading this book. Back to you, Jasper. Thank you, Jasper. So in a perfect world, we would all use reason to come to the best solutions. Is it ever okay to use subconscious persuasion? Firstly, I don't think it's up to me to tell you when you can and can't ethically use subconscious persuasion. I think you should think about it yourself and come to your own ethical and moral conclusions. There are lots of scenarios where one might think of persuasion as being more of a good thing than at other times. People generally feel that it is less bad if you convince a person of something that will benefit him rather than mostly benefit you. You could trick someone to eat healthier, make a positive career change, or choose a more environmentally friendly alternative. This mindset does, however, still operate from a perspective of superiority, since you presume to be more equipped to decide what is best for them than they are themselves. In my opinion, this mindset does not respect the other person's autonomy and the potential for using their mind to come to the best conclusion themselves. I think you should generally seek to have a rational conversation with the people around you. You may also give therapists and other types of consultants some extra ethical leeway, since their clients ask to be helped. I myself would still prefer my advisors, both on personal and work-related matters, to come to me with logic and fact-based arguments. And many of these professionals also prefer working that way. If you have to deal with irrational people a lot of the time, I would advise to change that situation. I realize, however, that we live in a society. While we can change jobs and move to a different city, we cannot completely curate the people around us to only be people that prefer logic and reason over persuasion and mysticism. But my suggestion is always go for a human-to-human conversation first. I strongly believe that people enjoy thinking logically. This is what makes us thrive and truly human. I don't think this has anything to do with being smart. No matter the IQ, we all need to learn how to think clearly, evaluate our biases, and make choices based on the facts of objective reality. On this channel, I will talk about rational thinking, how to protect yourself against manipulative persuasion, and how to separate the good personal development from the bad and the ugly. I will also share my own personal journey with persuasion and how I got disillusioned by the NLP and hypnosis scene after painstakingly climbing my way to the top. For now, thank you for watching. If you have any specific questions you want me to answer on this channel, you can put them in the comments below. And consider subscribing if you like this video. See you in the next one.